My name is Paul Nooney. I'm the Director of Student Services and Recruitment here at the Schar School, and I want to welcome you to the actually first annual Schar School Research Showcase. This evening, we're going to be presenting to you some of the research opportunities that you have if you come to the Schar School. One of our 14 research centers that are now showing up on the screen, one of which is actually brand new. It's actually not even officially open yet. It's the Race, Politics, and Policy Center, which will be officially opening on November 1st. So if you come and join us here at the Schar School, you have the opportunity and the access to these centers to help expand your experience as a student, not only attending classes, but also being able to access and even participate in some of the top level research that's going on at some of our centers across the Schar School. Tonight, we have 6 of those centers who are going to be here to showcase to you what they do in their center and how you might be able to get involved as a student if you join us here in the Schar School in a future semester. So without any further ado, I don't want to waste any time here. I want to get right into it. The way we're going to run this tonight, it's going to be kind of TED Talk style, where we go through, and each center is going to take about 5 or 10 minutes to talk to you about their opportunities and what they do in their research. To start us off tonight, I would like to invite Professor Bonnie Stabile from the Gender and Policy Center to talk to us a little bit about what her center has to offer. So, Bonnie, without further ado, take it away.
Hi there. As Paul said, thank you so much for having us tonight, Paul. My name is Bonnie Stabile, and I'm an associate professor here at the Schar School of Policy and Government. And one of the many things I do at the Schar School is to run the Gender and Policy Center, which I founded in 2017. And our preeminent concern at that time was bringing to the fore questions about gender and gender identity in the public sphere. And I think of gender as being a variable, one of many that we investigate in public policy research. And sometimes it's a significant variable and sometimes it's not. But one thing we observe is that many times in outcomes that in the implementation of policy, we see disparate outcomes for various groups in the public sphere. And sometimes gender is one of those significant variables. So we're looking at places, my tagline for the center is "We mind the gap." So we're looking for those places where disparities might be significant and might disadvantage some in ways that can be problematic in the public sphere. And that's what we're here to do in public policy, mitigate public problems. And that's something that professors and graduates of the Schar School do, all from different angles. So I think it's great that you're going to be hearing from different center directors tonight, because we're all interested in problems that have overlapping, we call it co-varying, right? Multicollinearity is the word you'll learn in statistics, right, to deal with this. All these things that create outcomes that public policy is designed to mitigate. So where gender and policy is concerned, we take it in 3 different buckets of interest. Politics and public authority, health and well-being, and gender-based violence are the 3 main areas of concern to our center. And just to give you an idea of the things that we do, I situated myself in my office so you could see all the posters behind me. One of the things I like to do in order to create dialogue around issues is to hold public events. We've done a lot of webinars during the pandemic, and I'm looking forward to doing in-person events and webinars going forward. So we have events around issues like data feminism and algorithmic accountability. So what the heck does that mean, right? In that case, we investigate things like artificial intelligence and advances in the use of algorithms that can disadvantage different populations. And so we both do research in my center and do public-facing events, and also try to bring the information that we're finding out and that we're studying into the curriculum in the classroom. So just to give you a couple of examples of some things that we have done or that we are doing, we have 2 upcoming events through the center. And one is actually going to be co-sponsored with another center director, another center that you'll be seeing tonight, which is Professor Faye Taxman and her Advancing Correctional Excellence Center, we're going to be hosting a webinar on criminal justice reform in the Commonwealth and beyond. And our speaker will be Jennifer Carroll Foy, who was a gubernatorial candidate in the Commonwealth of Virginia last year and who is a state political leader. She also has experience as a prosecutor, and that's what will be informing her discussion that evening. And we'll also have others who are practitioners in the field. We'll have Professor Taxman as our research expert. So the panels that we put together, I like to bring together current authors, journalists, researchers, people in prominence in the public sphere, and it creates a place where we can bring into dialogue what we call, researchers, practitioners, and citizens, so that we can be working to advance solutions to problems that we see in the public sphere. So last year we did events on the prevalence of domestic violence during the pandemic. We examined unconscious bias in the workplace. We had an event commemorating the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage, but our event focused on the disparities, that not all women got the right to vote at the same time, depending on other ethnic identities that created ongoing disparities. So the 100-year anniversary didn't apply to everybody, and we wanted to acknowledge that. And I'm looking forward to also working with other center directors, particularly Professor Michael Fauntleroy, who Paul mentioned. His center will be opening November 1st. We already have some plans in the works to do some events going forward. And another event we have coming up, and these are things that you'll be able to see online. If you look at the Schar events page, the information will be up there soon for the criminal justice reform panel. And also we're going to partner with Ms. Magazine to put on a webinar about the Texas abortion laws and implications of those laws. So I'm really excited about the programming we offer. If you're in the school building, come by and get a GAP button. I have lots of stuff you could see behind me, but we have buttons and we're pretty enthusiastic. And so if you're in Van Meter Hall, come on by. And if you're not here physically, we will be having webinars going forward, 2 of which I mentioned. And if you go to our website, which is genderandpolicy.gmu.edu, under the events tab, you can see videos of most of the events that we put on in the last year or more. So I also welcome input from you about ideas for topics that you'd like to see us cover, because a main part of doing this type of centering at the university level is to make sure that we're in touch with what matters to the community and the citizenry. So we really hope to hear back from you. So thank you so much for listening about the Gender and Policy Center, and I look forward to hearing from you.
All right, thank you so much, Bonnie. And Bonnie mentioned her website, and I do actually just want to put a link in the chat. I did put a link to our Schar School events page in the chat there, but I also do want to put a link to our Research Centers, Institutes, and Initiatives page, which lists all the centers that you'll see here tonight, as well as the ones that aren't represented tonight, and links to their pages, and if you want to go and check them out for more information. All right, next up, we have the Center for Energy Science and Policy, Professor Richard Kaslerich, I should say Ambassador Richard Kaslerich, Josh Holbert, and Joel Hicks. So if you would like to join us, there we are.
Great.
Gentlemen,
good evening.
Take it away.
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Rich Kaslerich. I'm co-director of the Center for Energy Science and Policy, better known as CESP, here at George Mason. I want to thank the Schar School for organizing this research showcase. CESP is a joint venture of the Schar School, the School of Business, and the College of Science. It's a multidisciplinary, vibrant energy science and policy hub here at Mason. And we focus on developing innovative, integrative, applied science and policy solutions, particularly for Virginia's energy security, sustainability, and resilience challenges. One of our emphasis is one of our emphasis activities is student engagement. And to talk about this, I want to introduce two colleagues. First, Dr. Joel Hicks is an adjunct professor here at Mason and the co-lead of our pilot project, which has Mason student involvement to develop a climate action plan for the city of Manassas. In 2019, Joel successfully ran for a seat on the Carlisle Borough Council in Carlisle, Pennsylvania for a 4-year term and was selected as chair of the Climate Action Commission for the Carlisle Borough. Josh Hurlbert is currently pursuing his master's in public policy with a concentration in international governance and diplomacy. And he's also working for United Community as a public policy intern. And as one of our CESP student fellows, Joshua can explain how prospective students can get involved in energy and climate activities when they come to Schar. So with that, over to you, Dr. Hicks, and let you talk about this great idea that we're working on.
Well, thank you, Ambassador Kozlovich. I appreciate that, and thanks everybody for tuning in. You know, here at the Center of Energy Science and Policy, we realize that Mason students themselves are the core of our focus, whether it's promoting energy and climate related courses and seminars or connecting students to top practitioners in the public and private sector. We understand how important it is to help students, both undergraduate and graduate, find meaningful purpose and work in the energy and climate security area. There are myriad opportunities out there. We want to connect the leaders like you of tomorrow with today's thought leaders and innovators in the energy space. And Mason geographically is a great location to do so. So as Ambassador Kozlovich mentioned, one way that the Center for Energy Science and Policy is engaged with our student fellows is to get them involved in addressing local government challenges. For instance, CSP worked with Mason to model a program after one in Pennsylvania, where I serve as councilman, as Rich mentioned. We're partnering students and faculty with local elected officials and municipal staff to help small municipalities create greenhouse gas inventories, which then inform their making of climate action plans. So we have begun this effort with the city of Manassas while assigning students to do the bulk of the data collection and analysis. And in fact, 2 of my own students in my governance and energy policy course are meeting many of their course requirements through this hands-on work with the city of Manassas. CSP is working hard with our Mason administration to make sure that as much as possible, students can get credit for their hands-on work, because we all want to maximize our efforts, right? So this local climate action program is the critical first step of what I like to call writing the first draft for local governments to reach their greenhouse reduction targets. These documents that the students are actually creating are foundational to help small communities think strategically about how they can efficiently and effectively achieve their climate targets. So students like you can expect to make a real impact by working directly with government officials, utility providers, and community leaders to help fill in the knowledge and resource gaps that plague so many small municipalities. Students are going to apply the theory of the classroom to real world problems where it's needed most. Our vision at the CSP is to make Mason a center of excellence for climate security policies throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, where we can deploy students with various skill sets to begin implementing, not just drafting, those climate action plans. Now, this could be in a lot of forms. It could be law students writing draft ordinances. It could be public policy or public administration students analyzing policy alternatives, or engineering students conducting technical feasibility studies. In other words, no matter what your interest, CSP has a place for you. I encourage you to check out our website and find us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. And it's one of the many ways our fellows contribute is to keep our CSP social media sites current and relevant. In fact, our fellows helped to create a really recent blog this week about the Glasgow COP26 conference. As it turns out, one of our fellows is going to be in Glasgow during COP26 next week. and he is waiting patiently now to talk to you. So I'd like to turn it over to Josh.
Thank you. Yeah, I am going to Glasgow this week, so it should be a very fun experience. So I was always, since high school, I was drawn to climate change and clean energy, and that's followed me from college and now grad school. I first heard about the center at orientation, and so I reached out to Ambassador Kozlerich, and we actually talked for probably 30 minutes about what the center does. And once an opportunity came up to apply for a fellowship, I emailed him and he just sent me all of the application details, and it was very simple. And so right now I'm working with 2 other fellows on our website. We're working on a podcast schedule with local climate change activists and also many other people as well. And we're also doing newsletters for our clients to keep them up to date on the newest in clean energy initiatives. The center provides students an opportunity to gain a lot of experience in the energy field, and any center that you want to get involved with that aligns with your interests, I would highly recommend it. It allows you to network in the area that you're most interested in. And it also gives you an opportunity to, at least for my center, we have our website. So it gives me an opportunity to publish some of my work that I've worked on in my related field. And it gives you a chance to meet weekly with some great professors and knowledgeable people in your selected center's field and help grow your expertise in the energy sector, while not being too big of a time commitment where I'm still able to do my internship and be a full-time student. So I would highly recommend applying to a center, and it's been a great experience. Thank you for listening.
All right.
Just to thank you, Paul, for this opportunity, and I think it's going to be a great evening. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen. And I'd now like to welcome to the virtual stage here the Director of the Center for Nonprofits, Philanthropy, and Social Enterprise, Professor Alan Abramson.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, and thanks from me too. I hope this is useful to prospective students, but it's also actually fun for faculty to hear what each other are doing. Unfortunately, we don't get a chance to do that often enough. So it's really interesting to hear about the other centers. As Paul said, I direct the Nonprofit Center. And I thought I'd start by talking a little bit about what the heck is a nonprofit. I think most of us know that they're out there. We may know a couple nonprofits, the Red Cross, Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, YMCA, but the nonprofit sector in the US is actually a couple million organizations, everything from very small ones to organizations that are pretty large. Some of the major hospitals are nonprofit, some universities, a lot of universities are nonprofit, private nonprofit organizations as well. So everything from hospitals, universities, arts, different kinds of arts organizations, soup kitchens, shelters, international development, and so on. So it's a very diverse sector. What these organizations have in common is a bunch of things. Probably one of the most important is that they don't distribute their profits. They can make a profit. It's a good thing for a nonprofit to have a surplus being a profit. But what they can't do is distribute it. They can't pay super high salaries. They don't pay dividends, things like that. The sector is interesting. Obviously, I'm biased, but I think the sector is interesting. Even today, it faces a number of big issues. COVID, for example, put a lot of stress on nonprofits. It put new demands for service. People People had needs, people were out of work, they were hungry, needed health care, and so on. So a lot of people were turning to nonprofits for help. At the same time, a lot of nonprofits were stretched for resources. Philanthropy was cutting back in some instances, not in others. Government funding, the same. It was kind of a mixed picture, but a lot of stresses and strains on nonprofits during the COVID era. That's one issue. Another issue which I'm particularly interested in is the blurring of the sectors. Nonprofits looking like for-profits, for-profits looking like nonprofits. Kind of hard to tell the difference sometimes. And that's been an interesting issue. Kind of double bottom line organizations interested in doing good and making money. A lot of young folks, and I teach a course on social enterprise. I also teach a course on social enterprise. A lot of young folks want to start organizations and don't want to be forced into these old boxes. Don't want to have to declare that you're a nonprofit or a for-profit. They want to do both. They want to be somewhere in the middle, and so that's been an interesting phenomenon to look at. A lot of pressure. Another issue, and I could go on. I'll mention one more. Pressure on nonprofits to perform. More and more funders, whether it be government, foundations, private funders, wanting to know what is the impact when they give money. What is the impact on nonprofits? So a whole slew of issues. Those are some of the ones that we're looking at in our center, our nonprofit center. I'm thrilled to have a couple colleagues, two other faculty, two other full-time faculty, tenured faculty, Stefan Topler and Murray Kim, are affiliated with the center, as well as several adjuncts and other kinds of fellows. So we have a nice group of folks who are engaged in thinking and working on the nonprofit sector. How can students get involved? A number of different ways. One, obviously, is research projects. We've got a whole slew of them going in our center. Research projects, public events. The three of us, Stefan, Murray, and I, are editing an interesting journal on nonprofit policy. And we're trying to do outreach too through our website and social media. So let me just mention a couple of examples of research projects. A couple on some of the issues I mentioned. Social enterprise, these double bottom line organizations, these do good and make money organizations. I've got a project going on what should public policy be towards these organizations. Now about 30, 40 states have created a new legal space for benefit corporations. A live question is, should these organizations get some sort of tax breaks? But an interesting space to work in. Another project that I have going is trying to think about a health index for the nonprofit sector, or I like to call it a Dow Jones index for the nonprofit sector. We know how we know how business is doing, even on a second by second basis. You know, you can check your phone. How's the Dow doing? Well, our information about the nonprofit sector, unbelievably, can be a year, 2 years old. And how can we do a little bit better about knowing how the nonprofit sector is doing? So what would be kind of a Dow Jones index for the nonprofit sector? My colleague Stefan Topler, I tend to focus on domestic issues, U.S. issues. Stefan focuses a little more on international nonprofit issues. He's looking at the closing of space for civil society around the world. More and more countries, Russia, some of the authoritarian countries, particularly Russia, China, cracking down on nonprofits, especially those that get foreign funding, and closing the space for these organizations. And what does that mean for nonprofits in those countries? Marae is also doing really interesting work. She's doing some of that work on COVID impacts, has a new report out in collaboration with the Urban Institute on how the sector is doing based on a survey that was done earlier this year. So lots of interesting research projects that students are welcome to get involved in. Some we can maybe get you some money for. Others, we would just look for folks who want to get involved. We have public events. We have something called the Community Partnership Forum, which brings together nonprofits, government, and business, especially in the Northern Virginia area. The idea is that attacking some of our problems really requires all three sectors getting involved. So we bring, past years, it was a live event. We brought about 200 people together to talk about interesting issues. This year, we've done 5 or 6 webinars. And again, there's the journal edit. So helping with these public events is another opportunity for students, or just attending them. We've got one next Wednesday that you might check the Schar calendar for. Welcome to help us with our journal, nonprofit policy forum, editing of the journal, if that's what you're interested in, and doing outreach for the center through our website and social media. We are reconstructing our websites. It may look unfortunately, a little feeble on the Schar School site, but we're putting it back together, and so happy to have some help in doing that. So please be in touch with me. Happy to talk to folks more individually, and would love to have you get involved in our work. And I will stop there.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. Keeping the train moving here. I'd like to welcome to our stage here the director of the Center for Business and Civic Engagement, Professor David Rear.
So I am Dr. David Rear. I came to the academic world late in my career. I ran 2 major associations and worked on Capitol Hill for about 30 years. And with that brought a real excitement about looking what business does well and trying to apply it to government. So we formed the Center for Civic Business Engagement. There we go, at the Schar School, and it's really blossomed. And let me explain to you what its mission is. It's basically to apply the application of business theory and practices to government to try to help make government more efficient and more effective, and really to solve a lot of problems that you all and that have faced, and many of us have faced most of our lifetimes. The mission shortcut is we want to make government more effective at all levels, at the federal, state, and local level. We want to achieve this goal by using the principles and practices used in the private sector. I know some of you are saying, well, not all of them apply, and they don't all apply, but I think they do apply in many circumstances, having been there and watched it. Our website is cbce.gmu.edu, and I think you'll get a breath for all of the things that we're doing. And we launched a robotic process automation initiative in January. And for people who are like worried about coding and stuff, I just had a son who graduated. He's like, Dad, I don't know that much about coding. These are low code applications that they use in government and the private sector to automate things, which will liberate people from doing mundane and tedious tasks. For example, it's only been in the federal government since about 2017, but the General Services Administration has one automation process that saved them 200,000 hours of labor costs and labor hours, which they can now apply to those people to allow them to pursue things of higher value to try to solve problems. Our issues include transparency for the center, accountability, stewardship, metrics, matrix, civility, and effective business advocacy. Now, the robotic process automation was launched in January, and it seeks to make the public sector work better. And it's really on fire now all across the federal government and all across state, but it really hasn't permeated local government as well. And the mission is to educate, research, educate, communicate how the adoption of this technology can make everyone's lives better, not only the taxpayers, the people receiving benefits, but the people who work in the public sector as well. The initiatives include webinar series. We just had one of the foremost global authors on RPA on last Tuesday. It was fabulous. We're getting responses from people all over the globe saying it was really terrific. He's the author of a book called Hyperautomation, Welcome to the World of Automation. And we produced this paper, The Promise of Robotic Automation for the Public Sector, which has had a global impact. I've heard from people in about 14 different countries who want to use it and to try to jumpstart RPA programs for their governments as well as in their countries. And, you know, I'm just a lowly professor at George Mason, but it's really taken hold. And I think we had something like 10 million media hits around the world on this paper. And it's attracting more people and more interest for what we're doing with the center. We have programs scheduled, which include our webinar series. We want to do research papers on how we can use RPA in states and in local governments. We're going to be launching an RPA podcast because a lot of non-IT people, particularly policy people, are unaware of the linking of AI, ML, and RPA and what it can do to solve problems. We want to construct a virtual map of where RPA is being used all over the world. I learned from my time on Capitol Hill that elected people, of course, you would realize this, are highly competitive. And if Illinois is running an RPA program, Iowa might go, well, if Illinois is doing it, we should do it too. And therefore, we can meet part of our mission of exponentially increasing the use of RPA. And we're doing surveys on work, government, and workers' attitudes. We want to be sure that workers aren't reluctant to embrace RPA because people who have, and some of the limited documentation we have, says their lives are so much better and their careers are so much more fulfilling because they're doing work which actually matters for people. And we're looking at research barriers to RPA implementation. Possible student assignments includes helping us with the podcast. If you're interested in podcasts, we'd love you to become a producer. You know, we're paying for that. And we'll also give you credit on the podcast so you can kind of build a name for yourself. We've got research for papers, survey research, collecting RPA examples, user case videos, and building this national database. We're doing media and social media, always looking for creative ways to promote the initiative that we've got involved with. And we also have a webinar series helping produce contact, booking talent, putting on helping us decide how Facebook Live works so we can put it on Facebook to get more people's eyeballs on these webinars because they're really turning out to be terrific. And as you can see, some are internship oriented, some are hourly oriented. The candidate selection process is really simple. Send me an email with your resume, indicate your interests. We'll determine your schedule, whether you can do an hour or 20 hours. We don't want to impede on your academic life or your career, but we think people can always find time to put more innovative and interesting things in their life. We do a quick phone interview and then we kind of assign you with a project and let you really be innovative and take off. We are looking for self-starters and people who are as passionate and as enthusiastic on these center initiatives. What are the benefits for being aligned with us? There are no political undertones whatsoever. You don't have to be a Democrat. You don't have to be a Republican. We don't talk politics. We talk about how making programs better, impacting people's lives, and helping government be more effective and efficient is really our priorities. You gain experience in a booming technology. Gardner has projected that the technology just in America will grow at like $42 billion over the next 2 years. You'll interact with companies and RPA experts. You'll gain academic credentials and recommendations. For those who take my class and who know me, and I'm sure this is true of our other professors with their centers as well, I go out of my way to help you improve your possibilities to have a brilliant career. I've been really successful in my life, and I want others to be even more successful in theirs. And we're involved in something that's positive and will positively impact institutions and governments and constituents all around the country. I forgot to add that this booming technology is short of personnel. And I hear from companies all the time who have internships that we can send people to so they can gain experience, as well as people pleading with me for jobs. David, do you have a student who'd be good? We can teach them what they need to know. They can learn the technology in about 3 or 4 weeks, and we'll start a job with them at $70,000 or more. Now, I'm sure that won't last forever, but these are really good jobs and are really interesting, and I think would be really valuable for people who have that look that they want to pursue. And I would conclude by saying, I think we're going to help make the nation better. So thank you very much, Paul. I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you so much, David. So next on is actually one of the newest additions to the Schar School Research Center lineup, and we'd like to welcome the director of the Center for Advancing Correctional Excellence, Faye Taxman.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to virtually meet you all. I am a university professor here at the Schar School, and I'm really pleased to be here. I used to be at the Criminology Law and Society Department at Mason, and I moved over to Schar because of the important work that's done at the Schar School and the opportunity to interface with a lot of fantastic scholars that are mostly interested in policy-related issues. So the Center for Advancing Correctional Excellence, basically, we're interested in high-profile public policy research and analysis. So you can imagine right now, we are in a phase in our criminal justice system, and actually it's being renamed to criminal legal system. So why is it being renamed? I mean, for most of my career, everything was talking about a criminal justice system. But, you know, the events over the last 5 years, concerns about mass incarceration and the impact of mass incarceration on our society have made people question whether there is true justice. And so one way of addressing that issue is to really think about how we refer to the old criminal justice system. And the preference now is to really talk about the criminal legal system and its different processes and procedures. And this is part of, you know, a number of major initiatives to really help us rethink our policies over the last 50 to 60 years that have resulted in unprecedented rates of incarceration and correctional control. So most people don't know, but the criminal legal system over the last several decades has actually resulted in the fact that now around 20% of the American population has had some interaction with the justice system. Now, what that basically means is that, you know, the legal system is involved in a lot of people's lives in ways in which, you know, have been decided are maybe not the most productive, and in some cases might actually be harmful. So the Center for Advancing Correctional Excellence, we take on these hard issues. It's really focused on scientific knowledge about how to improve the performance of the legal system to achieve the goals of justice and social justice. And we're really focused our attention on rethinking how we use the justice system. For example, there's a great debate right now that's about reallocating resources from law enforcement to the community. And the question that becomes is whether or not, we're actually redefining how we handle other social problems that we've designated to the police over the last several decades. So this important debate has made us really think about who's in the justice system and who should be in the justice system. So one thing we know is that the largest arrest category is actually for drugs, illicit drugs, possession primarily, as well as drinking related, alcohol related offenses like drinking and driving, public drinking, public nuisance because of drinking. And so it begs the question, should these types of issues be handled by the legal system, or should they really be handled by the healthcare system? That's a passion of mine, to be perfectly honest, is really this question of where should we actually put our resources to get the most bang for our buck, but also to do better in terms of helping the outcomes and dealing with some of the inequities that Dr. Stabile talked about in discussion about her center on equity. So the Center for Advancing Correctional Excellence, we focus on scientific studies that can inform public policy. We use a variety of different methods. I personally like to do experiments where you test out one idea versus another idea. I find that interesting. And so, that's one aspect, experimental studies to look at what works, what doesn't work. Another area that we're primarily focused in is the Achilles heel of a lot of initiatives that have to do with implementation. So implementation of policy and programs and practices is very tenuous. There's a new emerging science called implementation science that's now being applied and developed, and it gives us new insight into how to transform organizations and how to really work to improve the operations of those organizations. So that's one area that our center focuses attention in. We're actually part of a 14 sites, collaborative that is run by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, which is an agency within the National Institute of Health. So as being one of these centers, we have a high role, and we're doing 6 different national experiments right now, testing out new ideas about either how to transform some aspect of the justice system or how to better integrate treatment services within the justice system. So that's the J-Coin, that's what the project is referred to, actually has a lot of different arms and legs to it. We have one component in which we give out small grants to test out innovative ideas. We have another component in which we're actually doing translational research in order to further disseminate to the field, both justice and health fields, about what are some of the possible changes that can occur and what's the evidence from science. We actually just recently launched a website called JTech, which actually JTech has the potential, well, it currently has over 30 different types of learning experiences that are available to the public to really help people understand how does the criminal justice system, how does the legal system operate, what are some of the needs of people who are involved in the legal system, how best to handle with substance use disorders, why to use medications. Those are a number of different topic areas. Another area that our center focuses on is qualitative research or mixed methods research. I've teamed up with a dynamic qualitative researcher, Dr. Daniel Rhodes, and Dr. Rhodes is really, she's an ethnographer. We train the students who work with us at the center on ethnography, and you get unique opportunities to do when without COVID, of course, interviews within prisons and jails, in residential treatment programs, and to really understand, some of the lived experiences within those environments. As I said, we have a number of different projects going on. One project that I do want to mention is we currently have a study that we're conducting in 900 counties in the United States, looking at how local policy is made regarding issues related to who's incarcerated in the local jails and what kind of treatment capacity, substance use and mental health capacity is there in the community. And this is a longitudinal study, so we're going to be collecting data over the next 5 years and trying to really understand how does policy get made and what impact does that policy actually have on who's incarcerated, and what impact does the policy have on what types of services are available in the community. Like all the other directors of centers here, people have talked about opportunities. We have a ton of opportunities. We currently have almost 20 students working with us. And some students volunteer, we have some paid opportunities. The students are engaged in data collection. They're engaged in interviewing stakeholders in the community. They're involved in analysis. We've had several students who present at national conferences on the work that they've actually been done. And of course, we're very interested in scholarly papers. So we spend time doing that. Oodles of opportunities for people to get authorship and to be able to really engage with the work. We, as Dr. Stabile indicated, we're going to be co-sponsoring the Criminal Justice Reform Symposium in December. We also have planned a symposium in the late part of the spring, celebrating it should have been our 10th anniversary of the Center for Advancing Correctional Excellence, but it's really the 11th because we lost last year due to COVID. But we're having some great international speakers like Shad Maruno, who is from Ireland, and he's done tremendous work in some of the areas of restorative justice, desistance, that have really changed some of the thinking about how do we help people exit from a life of crime. So there'll be more information on that symposium. So stop by anytime. You can reach me at ftaxman@gmu.edu or go to our website. And Paul, thank you very much for giving me some time this evening.
Thank you, Professor Taxman. And for those of you watching, Professor Taxman is going to be giving a sample class next week on reforming the U.S. criminal justice system. I'm going to put a link in the chat right now to the Schar School admissions events page, and it's on there. And if you'd like to hear more about that or get more information, you can go to that website. So thank you so much, Faye.
Thank you.
All right. And to round us off tonight, I'd like to welcome Professor Louise Shelley, who is the program director for our TRAC Center, Terrorism and Transnational Crime and Corruption. And I will turn it over to Professor Shelley.
Thank you. And it's been a fascinating evening for me to hear from my fellow colleagues. And I want to tell you that track is not as frightening as it sounds, even though we do work on terrorism and transnational crime issues that are frightening. But we come up with solutions, we come up with research, and we're really engaged not only across the university, and that we've had students working with us from 5 different schools at the university, but we're also internationally engaged and have a wonderful international network with whom we collaborate on issues of terrorism, environmental crime, and illicit trade. So TRAC has many, many projects. We are we are really a research center that, unlike what Faye was describing, where everything is on corrections, and she goes in deeply and profoundly on these issues. I can't say we don't, but we have a more diverse profile of what we do on illicit trade, on transnational crime, and on terrorism. We also have a very vigorous program of outreach on Zoom. And just about every month, we do a program. Yesterday, one of our fellows at the TRAC Center is mentoring an activist from Namibia on anti-corruption, and he did a presentation on the problems of illegal fishing in Namibia and the corruption scandal called fish rot that was connected to this, and also on illicit timber trade, which is a devastating problem and very much tied to what Ambassador Kozlerich talked to you about of climate change issues. Our next event will be in the beginning will be December 1st, in which we will be having Frank Vogel, who is one of the founders of Transparency International, talk about his new book called The Enablers and the people who facilitate transnational crime and corruption. So most of our students work on our project, which is the Terrorism Database, which is the official database for the country reports on terrorism, the annual State Department report on terrorism. And every year, our multilingual, multicultural student team of researchers enters about 9,000 incidents of terrorism in the database that we populate. So many of our projects concern data. At present, we have 2 NSF projects. Both of them have students involved with them. One is on human trafficking, and we're looking at how human trafficking intersects with the legitimate world, with a particular focus on hotels, which figures in 80% of the cases of human trafficking that are federally prosecuted. And how does this happen? Why does it happen? What can be done about it? And we've been writing multiple articles on this that I'm publishing with the students who are working and leading on this project. And we're extracting information from data cases. Another very interesting project we're working on is another NSF supported project for 5 years on illicit supply chains and counterfeit PPE and pharmaceuticals and drugs. And we just won a major prize from the corporate world for doing the most in the United States. The corporation that we're partnered with of 3M, of doing the most in the United States to stop harmful counterfeits during the pandemic. And as a result of our research, which is 2 fellow researchers, a postdoc at the Schar School and 1 undergraduate in Schar and 1 in computer science, we have helped dismantle 12,000 websites and 12,000 more social platforms selling this material, and also have helped contribute to the seizure now of 55 million counterfeit masks for doctors and medical providers. So we're pioneering a new way to look at how academic and digital analysis and data analysis can help inform policy and save lives. And we've also are just finishing a project that we've done for 3 years with the World Wildlife Federation on environmental crime and corruption. I should also mention that TRAC is a member of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. There are almost no universities, there are a handful of universities in the United States that are members, and our center is a member of IUCN, and one of our affiliated faculty will be going to the COP meetings and also engaging with the IUCN community. So we've had students and postdocs working on this project over the years that we've had it. And we're just about to start a project on illegal gold mining out of Latin America and its convergence with other forms of illicit crime. So we're very active in all that we're doing, and we're starting a project also addressing corruption and transnational crime activity in Central America. And Professor Guadalupe Correa Cabrera, who is a member of our center, works on transnational crime in Mexico and is a renowned expert on that. So we also have a regional focus for our efforts at the present time. So I see that we're at 7 o'clock and I don't want to overrun our time. So welcome to the different and diverse centers of Schar. And thank you for listening to us all.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you all. I will echo the sentiment of Professor Shelley. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for the Schar Schools Research Center Showcase. We hope it gives you a little bit of an idea of, like I said at the beginning, some of the access to the different types of research and the different wonderful people that run and work with these centers you can have as being a student here at the Schar School. If you have any questions about anything that you heard tonight, or any questions about the admissions process or the application process, I am putting in the chat right now our email, schar@gmu.edu. Feel free to reach out there and someone will answer you back to answer any questions that you might have. But with that, we want to thank you again and thank all of our participants tonight, excuse me, who helped out. Bonnie Stabile with the Gender and Policy Center, Rich Kazrich and his two associates from the Center for Energy Science and Policy, Alan Abramson from the Center for Nonprofit Philanthropy and Social Enterprise, David Rear from the Center for Business and Civic Engagement, Faye Taxman from the Center for Advancing Correctional Excellence, and Louise Shelley from the Terrorism, Transnational Crime, and Corruption Center. So with that, I thank you all for joining us again tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care.